Teacher told poor student to play violin to mock her unaware she's a genius musician. Before we dive into today's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Mr. Alden, the music teacher at Crestwood High, stood in front of the class with that smug expression he wore like a second skin. You know the type. Hair too perfect, voice too polished, the kind of man who treated teaching like a performance and his students like props in his act. So, he said, pacing slowly across the glossy floors of the music room, today, we're doing something a little different. The air in the room shifted. Students glanced at each other. Everyone knew what a little different meant in Mr. Alden's class. Someone was about to be made an example of. His eyes locked on one student in the back row. Small, quiet, wore the same faded hoodie every day, sat alone. Her name was Ivy. Ivy Morales, 16 years old, moved to the city 6 months ago, lived in the low-income complex behind the football field. The other kids didn't know much about her, just that she kept to herself and didn't talk unless she had to. And today, Mr. Alden decided Ivy would be his lesson. "Ivy," he called, dragging out her name like it had a bitter aftertaste. "You ever touch a violin before?" She looked up slowly, her eyes calm but unreadable. "Yes." A few snickers broke out across the room. "Oh, really?" Mr. Alden's eyebrows lifted in mock surprise. "Well, what a lucky day for us all. Come up here, show us what you've got." There was something in his tone, syrupy, sarcastic. He didn't expect a performance, he expected a punchline. Ivy stood, walked to the front, and took the violin he offered. Her hands were steady. She didn't look at Mr. Alden, or at the students, some of whom were already whispering. She simply placed the violin under her chin and closed her eyes. And then, nothing. The room waited. A beat. 2. Someone giggled. Mr. Alden sighed loudly, ready to deliver the final insult. But then Ivy drew the bow, and the world held its breath. The first note floated into the air like a whispered secret. Soft, fragile. Then it grew, richer, deeper, until it filled the entire room with something that felt too big to fit inside 4 walls. She played a piece no one recognized, not from any lesson plan or school concert. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was delicate, aching, like a memory you didn't know you missed until it returned in sound. The laughter stopped. The giggles vanished. Mr. Alden's smile faltered, confused. But Ivy didn't look up. Her body moved with the music, fluid, instinctual. She wasn't just playing the violin. She was speaking with it, crying through it, healing, maybe. And for 3 minutes, the entire class sat in stunned silence. When the last note fell, Ivy lowered the instrument, handed it back, and returned to her seat without saying a word. Mr. Alden blinked, opened his mouth, closed it again. "Thank you," he mumbled, his voice uncertain for the first time all year. The bell rang. Students filed out, dazed. Some looked at Ivy. Most didn't know what to say. And Mr. Alden just stood there, clutching the violin, staring at the door she'd just walked through. That afternoon, Ivy sat alone under the bleachers behind the school, her hoodie pulled tight against the wind. She wasn't thinking about the performance. Not really. She was thinking about her mom. Her mom had always said music wasn't just a skill, it was a home, a safe place for feelings too big for words. She used to play the violin for Ivy when she was little. Concerts in the living room, smiles after long work shifts, but that was before the cancer, before the hospital bills swallowed everything, before they had to sell her mother's violin, the last gift she'd ever given Ivy. Ivy had taught herself how to play again using school instruments, sneaking into the music room early every morning before anyone arrived, practicing quietly, alone, no audience, no applause, just memory and muscle. So when Mr. Alden called her out today, she hadn't played to prove a point. She played because she missed her mom, and because the music was the only part of her she didn't feel ashamed of. Inside the school, Mr. Alden sat in his office, still holding Ivy's name in his hands like a question he didn't know how to ask. He replayed the performance in his mind again and again, each note undoing a thread in his assumptions. How could he have missed it? He prided himself on recognizing talent, shaping young musicians, guiding stars before they knew they could shine. But Ivy had been invisible to him. Just another poor kid in the back row, quiet and unremarkable. And he had mocked her. He had used her. Shame sat heavy on his chest. He opened his laptop and searched the school files, emergency contacts, old transfer records, and there it was, a note from a former teacher at her last school. Ivy Morales is musically gifted, one of the most naturally intuitive violinists I've ever taught. Please nurture this talent. He felt sick. The next day, when Ivy arrived early to the music room, as she always did, she found Mr. Alden already there. He wasn't standing like usual. He was sitting on the edge of the piano bench, shoulders slightly hunched. In front of him, on a velvet cloth, lay a wooden violin case, old, weathered, but carefully polished. He looked up as she walked in. "Ivy," he said softly, "can I talk to you for a minute?" She nodded, guarded. "So I owe you an apology," he said. "And yesterday, I was trying to be clever, but I wasn't fair, I wasn't kind, and I certainly wasn't the kind of teacher I should have been." Ivy said nothing. He motioned to the case. "This belonged to my mother. She passed a few years ago. It's a beautiful instrument, and it's been sitting in my attic ever since. I'd like you to have it, if you want it." Ivy's breath caught. She stepped forward, fingers grazing the case, as if afraid it might vanish if she blinked. "Why?" she whispered. Mr. Alden smiled, a real one this time, small, unsure, but honest. "Because you reminded me what music is really about, and because you deserve more than being laughed at by someone who should have seen you." Tears welled in Ivy's eyes, but she blinked them away. She reached out, opened the case, and cradled the violin like it was something holy. It was. That spring, Ivy performed at the school's annual concert. No one whispered, no one laughed. They just listened, and when the final note rang out, the auditorium stood, not for the music, but for the girl who taught them how to hear again. Because sometimes, the most powerful sound in a room is the one you never saw coming. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on how we treat others based on what we think we know. Ivy's story reminds us that talent, pain, and brilliance often hide behind the people we overlook. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and as always, thank you for watching.